I was a vegetarian for off and on pretty much 20 years. And I was raised vegetarian. I went to vegetarian Adventist schools, and I went to a vegetarian medical school, Loma Linda University, which is in Southern California. Then I did my residency in South Carolina. And at the time, it was the number one state in the United States for a whole bunch of bad things, including obesity and type 2 diabetes and heart attacks and strokes and all sorts of metabolic disease. So I saw tons of extremely severe type 2 diabetes and complications and obesity and insulin resistance and metabolic syndrome. And so from very early on, I adopted a large interest in the type 2 diabetes spectrum of diseases, metabolic syndrome and insulin resistance and obesity, and the various diseases that were associated with insulin resistance. Now, in medical school, they kind of taught us about diet, but the general thought was, well, you should eat a vegetarian diet because it's healthy and it's the right thing to do ethically and morally, but diet's not very powerful. And so the message for us was that people who have diabetes, it's mostly genetic. You have diabetes because your parents had diabetes. And, if both your parents are obese, there's an 80% chance you'll be obese. And if both your parents are diabetic, there's an 80% chance you'll be diabetic. And it's really just bad genetics, and we should feel sorry for these people. And yes, of course, they should eat a healthy vegetarian diet because it's just the right thing to do. But it's really all about the medication, right? So here are the drugs you put people on when you have diabetes, and then they will inevitably get worse, and then you put them on insulin, and this is how you gradually increase the insulin doses higher and higher and higher. And these are the complications you can expect from diabetes. And then 75% of diabetics die of giant heart attack, and that's just how it goes. And so this was kind of the angle I was coming at it from. I was told that all diabetics are going to get worse, and you just have to kind of feel sorry for them because it's not their fault, because they had this bad genetics, and that's just the lot they were dealt in life. And you just titrate their insulin doses higher and higher. And then I think what really caught my attention was a patient, a type 2 diabetic patient of mine in my internship. And this was, 20 years ago now, or more than this, was 22 years ago. And this patient, I was so used to having patients come in who had just gotten worse and worse and worse, right? Gaining weight, higher blood sugars, higher hemoglobin A1Cs, more diabetic neuropathy, retinopathy, nephropathy, all these complications and problems. And one day someone came in and I looked at the patient, I looked at his chart, and I was like, wow, you just lost 30 pounds and your blood sugar's normal. And this guy was like, yeah, I feel awesome. I've never felt this good. I even stopped taking my medications. He had normal blood pressure, normal blood sugar. He felt great. And I asked this guy, what the hell did you do? Because I have to know so I can tell other people to do whatever it is you did. And he throws down a copy of the original Dr. Atkins book, Dr. Atkins' Diet Revolution. And he was like, oh, I just read this book and it told me to not eat carbs, and that's what I did. And next thing you know, I'm just not that hungry. I lost all this weight. I feel awesome. And so I went to my instructors in internship and I said, you have got to see this guy. He totally changed his diet and he feels awesome and all this great stuff happened. And they just kind of looked at me and said, well, what happened to his total cholesterol? And I admitted that I didn't even really look. I didn't even notice. I didn't, and they're like, oh, well, go look. And sure enough, his total cholesterol had gone up, 10 or 20 points. And they're like, oh, great. He probably died of a heart attack in the parking lot, and you're the worst doctor ever, and way to go. And under no circumstances are you allowed to recommend this sort of diet for anyone ever at all, period, goodbye. And so that really got me thinking, what is going on here? Why is this single dietary intervention so powerful? And why is it that absolutely everything you could measure subjectively or objectively got better for this person, except for his total NLDL cholesterol? And I just spent the next 20 years researching the impact of diet on health, and specifically macronutrients on diet and health. And so I've just been researching the heck out of this my entire career. And it's just been hugely interesting to me, both personally and professionally. And I have been recommending at least some degree of carbohydrate restriction for a lot of my patients ever since then. I sort of divide food into protein and minerals, which plants draw up out of the soil, and energy, which is basically high energy carbon-carbon bonds that plants create using solar energy and carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. And then plants take this solar energy and store it as either carbohydrates or fats, both of which are just strings of high energy carbon bonds. So animals ingest all of this dietary energy, carbs or fats. We ingest protein and minerals, and we incorporate all of this into our bodies. And the problem with the modern food supply is that we've taken a bunch of energy out of food, which is basically refined carbs and refined fats, and we've dumped it into the food supply. And then when you're eating whole foods, you usually get some protein and minerals and some energy at a very nice ratio, right? If you just kill an animal and eat the whole thing, you'll get a lot of protein, you'll get a lot of minerals, and you'll get some fat energy. If, on the other hand, you refine carbs like sugar or flour, and you refine fats like oil, and then you just eat something like a donut, which is just pure refined carbs and refined fats, you've gotten a whole bunch of dietary energy, this high energy carbon bonds, but you have not gotten any protein or minerals. And so that drives overeating, because humans have this incredibly powerful protein satiety drive, and you will eat and eat and eat until you get enough protein, and only then will you stop eating. So when we were hunter-gatherers, you just went out and killed an animal and ate the whole thing, and you maybe found some plant foods and ate those, and you got this very nice combination of protein and minerals, as well as energy, carbs and fats. But in the modern food environment, where 60% of human calories come from wheat, rice, and corn, and these super low protein grains that are very high in carbohydrate, and because we have so many refined carbs and refined fats like sugar, flour, and oil, we're all eating a whole bunch of energy, and then we have to overeat that energy to get enough protein to not be hungry. So, for example, if you're eating a chicken breast, you eat a chicken breast, you get a ton of protein, you're just not that hungry afterwards. But if you're eating, French fries, which are potatoes and oil, and they're maybe 6% protein, you have to massively overeat the carbs and fats from those French fries to get enough protein to not be hungry. You're overeating energy in an attempt to not be hungry. And then we have to store that energy. All of the fat that you eat gets stored in your fat cells. All the carbohydrate you eat displaces fat oxidation and is fat sparing. So one way or another, eating carbs and fats contributes to your fat mass. And then energy toxicity is where you've overexpanded all of your fat cells and you run out of place to put fat inside your body. And that's literally what insulin resistance is. It's running out of places to store fat. And so you have too much triglyceride in your bloodstream, for example, which is fat energy with no place to go. And then eventually, when all the cells in your body are overfilled with fat, your cells start refusing glucose. So now your glucose is too high all the time. And that's what type 2 diabetes is. Type 2 diabetes is literally just end-stage insulin resistance, where all your cells are filled with fat, and now they all refuse glucose as well. And so all this energy just circulates in your bloodstream, glucose and triglycerides, and it has no place to go. And that's energy toxicity, basically, which is my term for metabolic syndrome or insulin resistance or hyperinsulinemia or anything on the type 2 diabetes spectrum.